Hey y'all, how's it going? So, we got part 3 of the Chakram Hex build, and where we left off last episode was us entering Caldera. Our main objective in Caldera is to go around the vicinities and enter the dungeons, looting the ornate chests to get the items that we need to craft the Astral Blade. This will be a key weapon and our main weapon we will be using in this build, as the Astral Sword inflicts the Haunted and the Cursed Hex debuffs, which applies the Ethereal and the Decay damage hexes. This is great for us because our offhand weapon, which our Chakram, that we'll get later in a couple episodes, will be inflicting the Scorched and the Frost hex debuffs, meaning we'll have 4 out of the 5 hexes on this build. The only hex we will not be inflicting will be the Doomed or the Lightning hex. Now that we have grabbed everything we can out of the Ark, we will be leaving and heading towards the Immaculate's Refuge. Normally when I spawn in Caldera, I go from the left side of the map to the right side of the map. This is just the route I would normally take when I farm samples, so due to me doing it over and over and over again, it is engraved into my head, and if I were to break the tradition, I would be unlucky. So we start heading southeast, and we make our way towards our Immaculate's area. When I was heading there, I actually don't know what caused it, and you guys can tell me down in the comments if this has happened to you. But as you can see here in just a few seconds, when I enter the Immaculate's dungeon, he actually was already aggroed to me, and I didn't do anything different from what I normally do, and as you can see, I go up to talk to him, and the dickhead just starts swinging. So, if you've ever had that happen to you in the comments, and you know the reason to why he was aggroed, do let me know. I was flabbergasted. I could not figure out why or what I did. Maybe I killed his brother in the Cabal Wind Temple and he heard through texts or rumors, but I have no idea. So, with us not being able to get a backpack or anything from the Immaculate, we just loot what we can. Sometimes behind this tent, a mole pig den can spawn for some samples, and always good to grab, but because it didn't for me, we now start heading south again to go to our next dungeon. In this dungeon, there will be 2 ornate chests that have the chance to spawn the items that we need, as well as a couple of other things. There's a palladium vein that we'll mine, and like always, there's chances that samples can spawn. While you're here, if you find samples and you have the room for them, you may as well grab them if you're planning on building Caldera, because as everyone knows who have built it, it is a bitch to get done. So, with everything, we run around, starting just grabbing loot before we actually enter, and as you can see, there was a mole pig den there, but I didn't have a fishing rod, so I wasn't able to pick anything up. At this point, I gathered too much crap, and I decided to just put a couple of things in my inventory and drop a couple of others, and I head towards the scary demon things, the whispers, willows, whatever they're called. When you're in this area, make sure you turn off your lantern if you're not trying to fight the enemies in here, as they are way too tough for us right now. Fire Sigil will barely do any damage to them, and because I'm already haunted with the Hex debuff, taking damage would either be a 1 or 2 shot in this current strength of this build. So we turn off our lantern and we sneakily approach the ornate chest, making sure that the enemy has not aggroed to us. We loot the chest without figuring out if we got anything good yet. Good news is, when you get the ornate chests, they have a chance of spawning glass weapons. And those glass weapons you could use, as they give you barrier defense, which is nice. But, just kind of like the horror weapons, they sell for like 750 to 900 silvers. So they're always great to grab. And they take priority over any of the militia weapons and armor. With the first ornate chest looted, we go down into the bottom of the catacombs here. We take the shield for extra silvers to get later, turn right, and another right to mine the palladium vein, as well as to loot this chest to see if we get anything good. And then finally, we go into the final part to loot the ornate chest, hoping that we get the items we need. With everything in this dungeon looted, we backtrack our way to the front door, and we head back into the Caldera overworld. So now that we are safely outside the dungeon, we take a look at our loot, and unfortunately we got the trinket handle, which is used for creating the astral dagger. The items that we'll be needing to loot is the short handle, the blade prism, and eventually we'll have to try killing one of the elemental things in these areas that would get us the waning tentacle. Now with everything, we start heading south to the Grotto of Chalcedony, or however the hell it's pronounced. I always like to, while heading there, going up to this little spire, as it has a chance of dropping Gep's blade. And as you all know, if you've made a Gep's blade, whether it's the long sword or the one-handed sword, that shit slaps. One of my builds I've made, one of my tanky builds, uses that as its main weapon, as it uses the mana wall armor. And since the mana wall armor does have a ethereal damage buff to it, it buffs Gep's AoEs, which is really, really nice. So we get a little bit lost, but as we find the pathing that we need to go, we start heading south towards the volcano and towards the grotto. While you're here, may as well loot and pick up anything that you see along the way, especially keep your eye out for any more samples. I will say, sampling and finding samples in Caldera the very first time you try building it is gotta be one of the experiences of the game, to put it nicely. I remember having the horrible experience of looking for them, as I could not get, I believe it was either the blood root or the mana stone or whatever the mole pigs can occasionally drop, and my luck was just horrible. I kept having to just wait and then eventually using the NPC that farms for one, or like just gives you one. So, yeah. Now that I've kind of worked my way around and figured out a good system, I normally, when I do different builds and I am building New Sirocco, if I am on PC, I would just spawn in the supplies I need, but I do occasionally play on PlayStation, and when I do that, I just use the code Sonic to speedrun exactly what you kind of see me doing here, looking for samples and then dropping the backpack off on the main character. So we do enter the grotto, and as you see, I'm buffing up right now because I chose to kind of risk it and kill a couple of the elementals, but the main thing I was going to kill here was this guy down here. He has a chance of, or not a chance, sorry, he does drop purifying crystals, which is needed to make the enhanced version of enchanting items. And unfortunately there we have another death, as I mistimed the mana push, and we get sent basically all the way back to where the spire was. Gep saves us this time, and we pick up our loot, and as this happens, I get a little pissed off, and I go on my phone to check a notification I got, and because I wasn't paying attention, I fell off the cliff and I died again, because I'm a fucking idiot. But we respawn again, this time in the Ark, so even further than we were. Now that we're kidnapped, we just rebuff up, get rid of a couple of our other debuffs, make sure we have enough stamina recovery so that we can sprint again. Ignore all these guys again, as we do not need to deal with them. And we make our way all the way back to the grotto. So, a little bit of a jump cut there, but we head over back to the grotto as we need to still loot the ornate chest here. Once we go inside, we refill up our lantern, as we would like to be able to see, buff up with any more of our stamina buffs, and this is where I start making my way back to the purifying quartz horse thing here, but when I lock on I realize, it's not worth it. It's just going to be more carrying weight for the purifying quartz. It's not needed right now either. So instead of risking my life again for another walking simulator, I just decide to start heading and looting the area while making my way to the next ornate chest. Heading into this area, there is a golem that is here, so I was mindful as not to get hit by it when I almost get assassinated by a hippo. Realizing that I need to stop making stupid decisions, I head again straight towards where the ornate chest is, this time not risking anything, looting what I can and running away. I get hit again by a projectile because I just apparently like to be stupid and love walking and dying. Heading over to the area that is at the bottom of the grotto is where we will be able to find the ornate chest. And it's easy to get lost in this area. We get another palladium scrap, and finally we head across this bridge here to where the ornate chest is. In this ornate chest, we do get lucky and get the short handle, which is one of the requirements that was required for the astral sword. So with that done, we now have one out of the 3 items needed for our main weapon of this run. We loot the rest of what we can, and we start heading back to the open world of Caldera. Now that we are safely back outside, we are going to start heading towards the Ritualists Hut. This way we can sell some of the items that we grabbed and make more room for more loot to grab. We get another water skin going for more stamina, and we start heading back down the way we came. When you're sliding down mountains like that, make sure you're always facing towards the cliff. That way you do not take fall damage. The one thing that was always a problem with entering Caldera is you cannot actually enter the volcano area until you beat the entire main quest line. This means that we are locked out of one ornate chest that we can loot, which is unfortunate, but because we are in an endgame area so early, you gotta do and make do with what you got. Now near the Ritualist Shack, we talk to the trainer to get us access to making the totems if need, because they do have the Doom totem, which would make the 1 hex that we don't have in this build available. But talking to the merchant, we sell what we have gathered and buy a whole bunch of loot as well, as this merchant doesn't normally have that much gold in his inventory to sell, so we do still have a lot of carry weight, but we do gain an extra about 20 some pounds. And loot is fun. Everyone likes loot, so you gotta get more room for more loot. But now that we finished talking to the merchant and the ritualist trainer, we start heading towards the Myrmitaur's Haven. Or how would you guys pronounce those beasts? Myrm? I don't know. I've never been great with pronunciation. But we start heading towards the Haven, as this will have another ornate chest for us to loot. In the dungeon, there is those snails as well as the Myrmitaurs themselves, and we are not looking to kill anything here. There's no reason to. They don't drop anything that's required for the build, and it's gonna just increase the chances of us dying yet again. So we run through the dungeon, looting what we can, because there's definitely a lot of stuff for us to find here. One of the nicest things about looting Caldera early is getting all of the Caldera items. As you know, they're just nice to have for buffs, especially just getting those tartines as you're able, or sorry, the jellies to make the tartines. Here we get another palladium scrap, always good. Gotta get all the money we can for when we're making our skills and getting our horror weapons. With all of these side areas looted, we are now good to head towards the main boss's area. Now entering the main boss's area, we start sneaking as we want to not gather aggro before we loot the ornate chest. Inside this ornate chest, we don't get lucky and we get another item for making the astral dagger, which is great if that was what we were going for, but because it's not, we are unfortunately out of luck and are needing to loot another ornate chest. So with everything grabbed here, we start making our way back to the front and to the Caldera open world. Before leaving, however, we make sure we go up this route to grab another palladium scrap. Now that we are safely back in the overworld, we'll be heading towards where the Sulphuric Caverns and the giant sauna is. But before going there, this is the route you would take if you were trying to activate the wind altar in this region. Going the Cabal Hermit as a breakthrough is also not a bad idea, as you can get wind imbue for the Astral Sword, as one of its main weaknesses is not having that much stagger damage. However, because we are using chakrams, stagger damage really isn't that bad of a problem. Wind Imbue also actually gives you 0.1% attack speed, and since the astral weapons have the fastest attack speed in the game, 1.2, making that 1.3 just means that we would inflict our hexes that much quicker. Grabbing what we can and looting everything on the way, we start kind of orienting ourselves of where we need to go, and we start heading towards the Sulphuric Caverns and the giant sauna. Before entering the Sulphuric Caverns, we decide to make our pit stop at the sauna, where we can talk to the only other merchant available in Caldera before you build New Sirocco. The merchant here, the giant, has a chance of actually spawning 3 of the unique backpacks in the game: the Chalendency backpack, the Dusk backpack, and the Weaver's backpack. My favorite one of the bunch being Dusk, as it adds 5 flat barrier to your armor. One of the only ways you can get the backpack is honestly just by having a bed placed and sleeping 3 days, resetting the merchant's inventory until you get lucky in spawning that backpack. Before leaving, make sure you come upstairs and loot this chest here, as everyone in this game's gotta be a loot goblin. So back outside, we decide that we see some midis here in the distance, and these guys actually do have a chance of dropping the item we need, the Waning Tentacle. It's only a 16.7% chance of them actually dropping it, but we gave it a shot just because in the off chance we do get it, that's just one item crossed off the list. So right here is when I make a rookie mistake, in where I did not have any firestones in my pocket, meaning I was at the mercy of this midis until I picked up my backpack. Picking up the backpack again, and luckily not getting attacked by him in the meanwhile, we replace our fire sigil, whilst now gaining the aggro of the other midis in the back there. After taking a couple of more hits and a couple more fireballs, we do eventually manage to take down the elder midis there. Now we can focus on the last midis in the corner. And with our last fireball, we end up killing the final midis, and we test our luck to see if we got lucky with the drop chance, but we did not. However, it is not the end of the world, as we are able to still kill the grandmother midis for that 100% drop chance, guaranteeing we get the item we need. After looting the final area here where the sauna is, it is finally time to head towards the Sulphuric Caverns. So we buff up yet again with our stamina buffs, and we start heading towards the caverns. It is at this point that I am still requiring 2 items before we're leaving Caldera. I need the Blade Prism and I need the Waning Tentacle. There are a couple of dungeons I can still do, hoping that I get the good drop chance. In the Sulphuric Cavern, there will be one more ornate chest, as well as the grandmother midis, which we will be requiring to kill before we leave. And so, while we make our way towards, we decide to keep trying to kill the midis. So after killing another one of the midis, we head out through the cavern in hope that we do get our Blade Prism. It is down here where we turn left and we enter the cavern where the grandmother midis will also be. Turning left to first loot the ornate chest, crossing our fingers and praying, unfortunately getting the blunt prism to make the mace. So we drop down to aggro the grandmother midis, and we leave to fight in an area that is a little bit more secure. Unfortunately, because we had too many things aggroed, we take some fatal damage and end up blacking out. Luckily, however, we spawn back in the Sulphuric Cavern, meaning we don't have to do a long trudge back to the Sulphuric Caverns. So we end up taking that death to heart, and we buff up with every single thing I had looted at this time, making sure we have a great fighting chance against the Grandmother Badiz. So after being lost for a little bit in the cavern, we decide to finally figure out where we're going, as well as looting another thing of palladium scrap. And we are basically ready for round 2. We head down the area here where we first died, and we try attacking the Grandmother Badiz again. But this time we're smart about it, and we make sure to first kill the things that aggroed before we enter our boss fight. Making sure our buffs still have a lot of time left on them, we reapply what's needed, drinking a stamina potion to decrease our stamina burn just a little bit, and reapplying our fire sigil. Now buffed and ready to go, we re-aggro the Grandmother Badiz. And round 2 begins. With 1 dead now, we can focus on the lesser and less scary enemy. Taking down the final Badiz of this run, we are finally rewarded with the Waning Tentacle, as well as a whole bunch of samples. With our inventory getting full and having 2 out of the 3 of the requirements to make our Astral Sword, it is time for us to return to Berg, as we're going to wait and get the Caldera area to completely reset for another chance later in a different episode. At this point, you really need to make sure you have the travel rations to make your way back to Berg, the Enmerkar Forest, as getting travel rations in Caldera is such a hassle. So make sure you always have some before you're entering. That way you can leave without any problems whatsoever. With that said, that's the end of this episode. Take care, y'all.